What if I told you that as job openings pop up throughout the state and the country, more and more individuals have been leaving their careers to start their own small businesses? It's called the Great Resignation. But why is this happening? We'll be sitting down with Greg Moreland, the Pennsylvania State Director of the NFIB, and Scott Carey, a person who did just that. And they're going to explain what they see as the driving factor behind this Great Resignation. That's all coming up right here, right now. I'm Sam Chen, and this is Face the Issues. Good evening and welcome to Face the Issues. I'm Sam Chen. It's called the Great Resignation as more and more Americans resign from their careers, not just jobs, and start their own small businesses. It's happening across Pennsylvania and across the country. But what's driving it and why are they doing this? I'm joined tonight by Greg Moreland. He is the Pennsylvania State Director of the National Federation of Independent Business, also the former Chief of Staff to State Senator Dave Arnold, and the former policy advisor to former Speaker of the House Mike Turzai. Greg, welcome to Face the Issues.
Thank you for having me, Sam. I greatly appreciate being here.
It's good to have you here, and I understand this. You are new to this role, somewhat new to this role at NFIB, so congratulations on the new job.
Thank you very much. It's been a busy last 9 months, and it's a great organization. We do a lot of good work here, so a lot of good work to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Greg, let me start with this statistic from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. This came out 6 months ago in July of 2021, where they said that 4 million Americans had left their jobs in July alone. By the end of July, a whopping 10.9 million jobs were available throughout the country. And most people have said this has been triggered by the COVID-19 pandemic. But that's also a very broad generalization. So I want to ask you two things here. One, is this resignation movement as widespread as we're hearing? And two, what do you see as driving this?
Sure. Yeah, I absolutely think that this Great Resignation is having a drastic impact on our small businesses. Our small businesses, about 50% of all of our small businesses that we poll say that they cannot find available workers to fill their open positions, and we start to look at the psychology of work and why and what occurred over the last 2 years. We're about 22 months into 15 days to flatten the curve. And I think people have given a lot of thought to what their work-life balance is, what it was, and what they want it to be. I think challenges over the last 2 years with childcare, with school problems, have caused a lot of workers to reflect internally as to what it is that they desire from their workplace. Is it wages only? Is it flexibility? Is it the ability to work remotely and not have defined hours of remoteness? Working in a restaurant, working in some of the service industry is very difficult. Long hours, nighttime hours, weekend hours, holiday hours. I think many workers kind of went back to the drawing board, had that discussion with their family, and kind of determined that maybe they wanted to take their life in a different path. And that has had a drastic effect on our small business and some of our industries. But I don't think it's something that our small businesses can't recover from and figure out a way to work around.
Yeah, a lot of according to the Harvard Business Review, the two sectors, if you will, that had the greatest amount of people that left are technology and healthcare. And that would seem to make sense to what you're saying with the burnout from the pandemic. And is this really what I want to be doing? When you're looking at statistics like this, Greg, the other thing we're seeing is that a lot of this is occurring at mid-career. And to your point earlier, it seems like a lot of people are just doing a lot of self-reflection about where they want to be. And so the question I have here is, you've got small businesses that are hurting because of this. And then you also have a lot of people who are leaving companies and starting small businesses. And so in your position, your organization's job is to represent small businesses. How do you guys balance that positive and negative? What do you see as the good and the bad in something like this?
Yeah, well, here at NFIB, we're the National Federation of Independent Business. We represent about 13,000 small and independent Pennsylvania businesses, every corner of the Commonwealth and in every segment of the economy. Some of our industries, the ones that traditionally have employed slightly lower wage workers, have seen a drastic impact from burnout and getting back to the healthcare industry. It's hard work when you're working in a nursing home and having to lift patients and again come in on weekends and come in on evening shifts and cover overnight shifts. That is very difficult. So I think the burnout of some employees in the healthcare sector and even the technology sector, we're seeing them again reevaluate their lives. Many of these individuals, are between the ages of 25 to 40 or 30 to 45, in that range, in the mid-management range. And I think that many companies, when businesses shut down through no fault of their own, when the government decided that they needed to shut down for a time period, people went back and they said, some workers were offered remote work capabilities. And I think a lot of people found that they liked that. They had the ability to interact with their families more. They had more freedom in their daytime activities. They weren't, having to fight through an hour of traffic on the way to work, an hour of traffic on the way back from work. So then they kind of changed what it was that was important to them. It wasn't only the wage that was important. So I think you are seeing some of those individuals in that mid-management group kind of reevaluate their life choices. And in that 30 to 45 range, getting back to the child care and school-age children, that's a group that is predominantly affected by having school-age children. And when the schools were, hit or miss on being open or remote, that causes a lot of issues with staffing. And, I think a lot of those workers decided that maybe it was best that they find a position that was maybe more of a 9 to 5, didn't work nights and weekends, and offer that flexibility to them so that they could, have that healthy work-life balance.
Greg, you just brought up something really interesting that I don't think we always think about, which is you're not a standalone person in the workforce. You have a family. And the situation with the schools on whether they're going to be open or virtual, whether they're going to be shut down for a few weeks because of COVID, or even if your kid gets COVID and has to stay home, that this would disrupt what would be a normal, traditional 9 to 5 kind of work week. And that's something that's completely outside of the control of the employee and the company. And I just, that holistic view, I really appreciate you sharing that. And so I want to ask you this as well. I know NFIB led the charge against President Biden's OSHA vaccine mandate, which has been struck down and now removed, but that mandate stays in place for healthcare workers. Does that contribute to the challenge that we're seeing in finding jobs? And I mean, the vaccine debate aside, I think there's a valuable debate about the vaccine, but just from a purely effect on the economy and effect on small business perspective, does that contribute to the challenge of bringing on staff?
Absolutely. And NFIB challenged the OSHA rulemaking procedure for the vaccines, not because NFIB doesn't believe the vaccine works or is effective. We did it on a procedural basis because we did not believe that OSHA had the ability to promulgate this rule and did not have the authority. And what that rule would have done is, negatively affect small businesses that are currently looking to hire folks now. And so you were seeing, and some hospitals have even, outlined that they have lost skilled workers due to their hesitancy to get the vaccine. So I think, NFIB led the charge on that, the Supreme Court case, and we're glad that the Supreme Court came down with the ruling that it did. We believe that it should be up to each individual business and their business practice to set the rules and regulations for how best they operate and how they can work with their employees. Many of our businesses only have 10 or less employees in their business. We are truly the voice of a small business. So, when one person calls out or one person quits because they have a vaccine mandate in place, well, you just lost 10% of your workforce. That is a huge problem for small businesses when we just simply don't have the manpower right now in economies of scale like large corporations do.
Yeah. Greg, let me ask you this as well. As we said, a lot of these people who leave are then going and starting their own small businesses. And something you mentioned, they're looking at their lives and especially if they're in that middle management phase. And so you're getting a lot of new small businesses that are starting. What advice do you give them? Because it's not starting a small business is not something that you just decide one day, let me go do this. There's a lot that goes into it, which is why a lot aren't successful. What advice do you have for those people who have left for personal reasons or otherwise and are now looking to launch their own small business?
Well, I think it's always a fantastic idea to have, legal assistance and also, accounting, somebody, a CPA, possibly a financial services individual that can help walk you through the process. Pennsylvania is not an easy state to start a business. We do not do a very good job of encouraging individuals to take that risk to start their own business. And at the end of the day, that's what each individual does. They don't start out with the intent of starting their own small business and always remaining small. The American dream is to start a small business and to grow it, employ your friends, employ your neighbors, employ your family, and grow to be happy and a very successful company. But a lot of companies don't get off the ground. And I think that, when you have the help of an association like NFIB, to help walk you through that process, to keep you updated on legislative changes and regulatory changes, so that you can always remain in legal standing, I think that that's something that, could really benefit individuals who are looking to go down that path.
I think that's fantastic advice. We also talk about getting your ducks in a row and making sure you have the legal help, the accounting help, financial help, and the help from organizations like your own.
Sure.
Greg, thank you so much for joining us and for breaking that down. Deeply appreciate your insights and everything that you and your group continues to do for small businesses.
Thank you very much, Sam. It's a pleasure to join you and happy to come back anytime.
Oh, we certainly look forward to having you back. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
Face the Issues is produced and recorded in the studios of Lighthouse TV. Positively different.
Welcome back to Face the Issues. I'm now joined by Scott Carey, who is the president and co-owner of Slate Belt Butchery. But that wasn't always his job, and he'll be sharing his journey with us. Scott, welcome to Face the Issues. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. Now, you are the president and co-owner of Slate Belt Butchery, but my understanding is that wasn't always your job. You actually had quite a career. So talk to us about what you did before.
Correct. Yeah, I spent about 10 years in internet marketing, just working for various companies, doing, Facebook ads, Google ads, digital marketing, across the board, yeah. Basically.
And you work for some big names, right? I mean, Crayola, Lehigh Valley Health Network, Rodale, Cigars International. These are some of the names that are Lehigh Valley based, but international names.
Correct. Did
you go to college for that?
I went to college for marketing at King's College in Wilkes-Barre. I spent some time there, I moved down here about 2010, 2011.
So the butchering business was not what you were going to school for. You were going to school for marketing. You went into that industry. You had quite the career in that industry. At what time did you start Slate Belt Butchery?
I started Slate Belt Butchery in August 2020. Okay. So it was like right in the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah.
But it actually started about a year before that. I was by myself and I was just, I did a lot of stuff in my backyard at home, and I made like kibasi's, sausages, bacons, and people started asking me for it.
Yeah.
But like me being someone who has like a, business sense and trying to, make money different ways, I was like, well, I want to do this legit. I want to get in trouble for making bacon in my kitchen.
Fair enough.
So I put a business plan together and I found a commercial kitchen in Easton, and I was making stuff there, but then the pandemic happened and they shut the kitchen down. So I was basically scrambling to find a location. And being in the industry prior, I worked for a butcher about 2 years prior to this. I met many different farmers, and when I started reaching out to different people, I learned that one of the farmers that we did work with had a full butcher shop that he wasn't using. It was basically sitting empty. And so I reached out to him and he invited me up, and I went from a commercial kitchen in Easton to a full butcher shop in Salisbury.
Talk to me about your journey, because you were, again, in digital marketing, and you said you worked briefly for a butcher. You went into a lot of this, like meat smoking and bacon and things like that, more on the production end of it, and then now to owning your own butchery. Walk me through that journey. At what point did you know, and what motivated you to leave that corporate world and do what you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, when I went to college, I thought, I didn't really know what working in an office was going to be like. And when I got out of college and I got into an office and I was sitting behind a desk for 9 hours a day, I started to realize, I was like, this isn't really who I am.
Yeah.
And that was a very tough time in my career, just because I was like, man, I went to school for this. Like, what am I going to do? I'm at a crossroads. And you'll see, like, I hopped from different, employers during that time, just because I got antsy. I was like, I couldn't sit still. I did what I thought I could do at one company, and then I moved on to the next, and I felt like it was like that for a little bit. But basically it was a hobby at first. I was a barbecuer. I did a lot of backyard smoking.
Real barbecue, not the cookout, real smoking.
Yeah, like wood smoke, fire
incredible.
building, like offset Texas style barbecue.
The good stuff.
Exactly. And so I was really into it, and I was doing that while I was working. So like I was working full-time job, and then I was like planning out my weekend cooks, and I just kept doing this. And then I was working for a local hospital at the time, and it got to a point where I was like, I had to take a break. And I'm married, and I talked to my wife about it. She was like, I think it's best for your mental health just to take a break. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? It was like, you can't just quit your job and sit at home. Like, you have to find something that you like. And so I was like, I'm going to see if I can get into a butcher shop and see if this is going to work for me. And I worked for them for about 2 years, and I loved it. I loved the production side of things. It was a complete new world for me. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Started in the packing room, and I made my way up to the kitchen. I was making sausages, charcuterie, and I loved it. But I ended up after 2 years, I was like, I got to go make some money again, So I was like, okay, well, I have the skills. Let me go back into the corporate world. I went work for Crayola, and but yeah, it didn't leave me. So like back basically in 2019, I was like, people were asking me for different things that I'm making, and I was like, I'm going to put this business plan together, and that's what led me to the commercial kitchen and starting. It was basically Carey's Meats, and then when I took a partner on it in August, that's when we changed to Slate Belt Butchery.
Mm-hmm. So this was really a journey of self-discovery, not just a journey of jobs and careers, but finding yourself along the way.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I there was a lot of tough days. When you do something that you're not 100% into, like I'm sure a lot of people, are money motivated. They could, it's not really what I like to be doing, but I'm getting paid good, so I could stick it out.
Yeah.
But for me, I need to feel like in my heart, it's like I'm loving the career, I'm loving the work, or else I can't.
Yeah, and I think even people who make lots of money I think deep down inside, each of us have that bit of purpose of. Yeah. The paycheck at some point gets stale. I mean, nobody hates money, right?
Yeah.
But at some point it gets stale if you don't love what you're doing.
Yeah.
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 Let me ask you this, guy. You went to school for marketing, and then you worked for some great companies. And what you were saying is you don't hold anything against them. You loved your time at Crayola. Like, do you regret going to school and walking through that career?
I would say like early on when I was just getting out of college, and in college I tried to start a business, and it didn't really work out too well, and I found myself working, in these different jobs, and I was like where's the I think I probably like resented it a little bit.
Sure.
But the older I get, looking back on my career, everything I've learned in like the corporate world is like helping me now in Slate Belt Butchery. Like I get hit with a lot of business questions, a lot of like just organizational structure, like processes. Like my employees like need to know processes, or else they're gonna feel lost. And I learned a lot about like creating SOPs in the corporate world. So being in my position now, it's like I don't regret any of that, because that's what that led to, is like me being able to run this company.
So in a way, even though it's not where you ended up in the corporate world, it's been drafted or crafted into your journey, your story.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, basically I'm taking little things from each company.
I think that's really good advice too for people who are starting careers, whether they're opening their own company or they're in a corporate world, where it's not every day is great, and maybe it's not where you end up, but what are you learning from that process that you can take with you?
Yeah, again, people are going to get out of college and they might not take, they're not going to be out there, in previous times, maybe people stayed at one job for 40 years and then retired. I don't know if that's the case nowadays. I feel like people are hopping to different jobs more frequently. I mean, at least I did anyway. And I know some of my friends have done the same. So I think that you can take a lot from every experience, like try to find like the positive in it. Because if all you're doing is find you're not going to really like learn. You're just going to kind of live with like a chip on your shoulder, and it's not really. So I think maybe a couple of years ago, I started to change the way I thought about some of the places I worked at, and maybe they weren't as negative as I thought.
Sure. Well, I think that's great advice. And if you were to sit down with somebody who wants to do what you did and is in this place, they feel stuck maybe, what do you tell them?
I mean, I wouldn't just, jump off the cliff and say, I'm going to start my own business. Like, what I did is I went and I worked for someone in the industry. I worked for a butcher, and I spent time understanding the industry and the business. So I would recommend that. Like, if you want to do something, maybe spend a part-time job or start on the weekends, like, and start seeing if that's really what you want to do. Because you go from not running a business to working 80 hours a week. That's a huge lifestyle change. So you got to understand that, like, what you're about to do that's going to be your entire life. So maybe you should see if that's something that you really want to do and learn the business a little bit. I
think that's fantastic advice. Sometimes we have to slow down a bit and get into it and try it first before we commit.
Exactly.
Last question, if someone's watching this and they want to get in touch with you about Slate Belt Butchery, how can they do that? Do you have a website? Like, how can people find you guys?
Yeah, they can get us at slatebeltbutchery.com, or they can find us on Instagram, just at Slate Belt Butchery. We're also on Facebook, same handle. And the number that you call goes right to my cell phone. And you can just email us at info@slatebeltbutchery.com, and I'll get back to you within the day.
Sounds good. slatebeltbutchery.com. Scott, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it, and just absolutely love the journey that you've been on, and thank you for sharing your wisdom.
Yeah, thanks for having me today. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Face the Issues. We close tonight by offering a tribute to two individuals who were near and dear to the Face the Issues and Lighthouse TV family. Kurt Yanks served as an engineer here at this station, and Kurt was the guy behind the scenes. And as so many of us in front of the camera would say, that the real talent rests with those who are behind the camera. With Kurt, that was every bit true. I joked with him recently that he couldn't ever retire because we wouldn't know what to do. To which Kurt promptly pulled out a notebook that said, in case Kurt gets hit by a locomotive. That was the sense of humor Kurt brought here every day. And that was the sense of humor he brought to every problem that he fixed. And we're certainly going to miss him. And the other is Detective James Stanko, 13-year veteran of the Allentown Police Department, who recently joined us here on this program. He came on to talk about communities and policing, amidst a tense time in this nation on that very topic. But that was Jim to the letter. He never backed down from a conversation. And as he reminded us that day, if we could see each other's humanity instead of the labels that we like to throw at each other, then this world, this society, and this community would be better off. Both Kurt and Jim touch so many lives, and both of them leave behind grieving families. And so we just ask that you keep their families in your prayers in the weeks and months ahead, and also keep Detective Stanko's Allentown Police Department family in your prayers as well. Kurt, Jim, it was a privilege and a pleasure knowing both of you. Don't know why God called you home when he did, but we promise to continue to keep your family in our hearts and in our prayers. Thank you for the example that you set. Thank you for your friendship. And until we meet again, Godspeed.